Welcome to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. Thank you for your service.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. We're going to have a lot of fun today because we're talking about one of my favorite subjects. I grew up in a contractor's home, and we're going to talk about woodworking. And not only are we going to talk about woodworking, but we're going to be talking about starting a business and all the fun that you will have when you have to try to start a business after getting out of the military. But we have on the show today Mike Legregni. Okay, he's a former Marine. Actually, sorry, I will redo that and say once a Marine, always a Marine, never a former Marine. But and he, because I've gotten yelled at before, and I'm like, man, I don't want to offend.
I like the word former. X
You
is
do?
bad. X is bad.
No,
X
we don't
means
like
you broke up with somebody on bad terms.
No.
Yeah,
And
former's good.
Former's good. Okay, so we'll stick with that. But he is the founder and the owner of Veteran Wood Co. All right, you might see them on Instagram. He's got a great Instagram account where he shows off all the artistic, amazing epoxy tables and signs, and I mean, just everything that he's been doing. But it's great to have you on the show, Mike. It's somebody that I've wanted to have on the show, so I'm glad to finally sit down with you.
Thanks, Jason. It's an absolute pleasure. Big fan of yours. Also, thank you for your service.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So the way we usually start the show off is I like to hear a little bit about the person behind the business or behind the organization, because let's be honest. Yes, that person.
Sometimes I wish there were more people back there.
Don't we wish that all the time? Every time I sit down and edit, I'm like, couldn't I have somebody just do this for me?
Right.
But because I think it goes so much into the organization that you end up creating is where did you come from? What did you do? And how did that impact where you are now?
Okay. From the top, I guess. I'm 38 years old. I'm married. Didn't start there. It took a long time to get where I am today. Joined the Marine Corps when I was 17, had that parental waiver pre 9/11. Initially went in as an aircraft mechanic, wanted to learn a trade. There was no war. There was no war on terror. All my uncles and my father was Army, Vietnam infantry. My two uncles were all special forces, LARP, and then recon. And they're all like, definitely go get a trade. It took a lot on their bodies. All three who I just mentioned have all passed away. Agent Orange, dementia, and then COVID. But regardless, they all told me when I was going to the service, like, there's no need to go in as a sniper or a recontract right now. There's no need for that. Go in, learn a trade, take that trade, come out, and then turn that into a career of some sort. Because I always enjoyed working with my hands. In high school, I was a skater. I was a hockey player. As a young child in middle school, I was always building skateboard ramps and half pipes and you name it. And then as soon as I got my license, I picked up the iconic 5.0 Mustang, 89 GT, and headers, coil, stupid things, intake, just turning wrenches, always turning wrenches. I always found joy in turning wrenches and making things better. So joined the Marine Corps of September 2000, the whole deal, Paris Island, all that good stuff. And then aircraft mechanics in Cherry Point, North Carolina for a year. And then September 11th happens. We go overseas to Saudi Arabia for, I think it was Operation Northern Watch or something like that. We're there for like 6 months. And then, I kind of got bored with turning wrenches. It was very limiting in terms of like the same jet every day, very limited scope of work. I wanted to do more in terms of like serving my country, because now we're like, there's an enemy, like an obvious enemy.
Yeah, there's a huge change there.
Yeah, big change from like, pre to post. And, my options were limited. You really can't lat move with a year and a half in, 2 years in. You're not for reenlistment. You can't really change your MOS just at the snap of a finger. So I was recommended by some friends, some like senior NCO guys, to try the MSG program, which is the Marine Security Guard program.
Okay.
So it's when the Marines transition to the Department of State side. You go to Quantico for about 3 or 4 months. You get the top secret clearance. It's all sexy. And then you're like a mini SWAT team for the embassies. God forbid something was to happen overseas, you're a reactionary force at the embassy. So I ended up doing that, went to Quantico, graduated, went to 3 different embassies. I was in New Delhi, India, Sri Lanka, and then London was my last post, and then got out towards the end of 2006, I EASed. And then as I got out, it was just like, that's that problem we all face, is like, you're a Marine without a mission, or you're a soldier without a mission. It's just like, what do you do? And there's no regimented lifestyle anymore. There's no 06 or 05 wake ups. There's no PT Monday, Wednesday, Friday. There's no uniforms. It's just incumbent upon you to kind of find your way in the world. And back then, this is 2006. It sounds like a long time ago. It was very, very brief STAPS class, like very, very brief and undetailed separations class. I was all the way out within like the matter of a week. Like I didn't know which way was up.
Yeah, they just, I was the same way. Like there was not much. It was just like, hey, you're out, have fun.
Yeah, pack your bags. Here's your car. Like submit a travel voucher and we'll see you later. I initially wanted to stay in. Like I was always thought I'd be a career Marine. Got into some trouble in London with some other Marines, got in a fight with a coworker. Just had a really bad taste in my mouth for the leadership that wasn't there. And I was like, you know what? It's the only complaint I had was like being on the Marine Security Guard program was an awesome duty. They now have made it a primary MOS where you can apply for it prior to boot camp. And if you're selected and you meet the criteria, you can then do that for a bunch of years. So at the time though, it was considered a B billet, and you're so indulged into like what you're doing with your career in the embassies, you kind of forget your primary MOS. And like my primary MOS was very technical. So like I was kind of intimidated to go back at a higher rank and then be leadership in a technical field that I don't know anything about anymore because it's been 4 or 5 years. So I was like, you know what, I'll just get out. So I got out, went to college. I had a scholarship for a local community college that I burned through real quick. Got my degree in criminal justice because that just seemed like the easy thing to do, transitioning from the embassy side of the house to, criminal law. And then I became a cop, became a local law enforcement officer in a local town where I was raised. And I worked there for about 10 years. And the whole time I worked there, I was always working part-time. I worked part-time initially in a jiu-jitsu school. I was a coach and like a manager, but always held part-time work. And then I always had like a race car on the side, like some sort of car to tinker on, like
something to play with.
Something to play with, whether it was like a Mustang, an Evo, I had an M3, just something to play with to make fast and get your jollies off on.
Everybody wants the Evo. They always go the Evo.
Yeah, I had to try it. It was worth a try coming from a whole bunch of Mustangs. And I was like, it's a 4-cylinder, it makes a ton of power. It's turbo, it's lightweight, stick, it's all-wheel drive. Like, let's give it a shot. It was loud, but it was a lot of fun. Cars, I've always worked with my hands. And this transitioned to like how I am now working with my hands for a living. So working with my hands on cars as a cop, I love the mission. I love what police do. And, in modern day America, they're having a really hard time right now, but I love being a police officer, but had more problems with coworkers. I found myself in the middle of a very precarious situation where I was kind of forced to be a whistleblower in my career. And I was given that odd choice of kind of like go along with what we're all doing and shut the fuck up about it, or like get out of the way. So I chose to get out of the way, and I did that in terms of like a civil lawsuit and also like a federal thing. And I ended up just walking out, like retiring. I had 13 years there, 13 years total. I bought some military time back, so that was applied towards my pension. And so I was like, I'm formally a whistleblower where I was working, and it sucked, but it was worth it. Like I held true to my ethics and to my standards, my morals. And then I found myself unemployed. I was like, all right, now I'm a cop that nobody wants to hire. What do I do with myself?
Right.
I know I'm really handy. I was trying to go from law enforcement local to federal, like almost seamlessly. Like throughout my entire career, I was always applying, trying to go federal, because I didn't really like wearing the uniform. I always felt like there was a target on your back. And if you can make that transition, then I always thought it'd be worth it. I had a lot of guys tell me federal law enforcement.
So you're thinking like FBI, Air Marshals, something like that.
Yeah, something. I had an interview with the Air Marshals. It was a very difficult interview question. This was in 2006, right out of the Marine Corps, the ASAC in the New York office, Queens. Sat me down. And he said, Mike, he goes, you're young, you're full of piss and vinegar. He's like, this is a very, very lackadaisical job where you always have to be aware of your surroundings. He's like, let me ask you something. He's like, this is my only question for you. Why do you want to stare at the back of a headrest for 12 hours a day?
Fuck.
That was my interview question. He goes, you got 3 months to get back to me. Academy's in August. And I was like, it's a good point.
Tough one.
It's tough. I was 26 and I was like, ugh. So then,
because the first answer is I don't want to stare at a headrest,
but that's your job.
But that's your job.
And then he followed it up with, he said, in this line of work, you only get to be a hero once. He's like, this is not police work where you go out there every day and you can be saving lives. So in our line of work, you either blow your cover or the plane goes down. That's it.
Right.
You do one of the two and no one's ever going to see you again because your days of flying are over. You'll become an instructor or you'll be in-house or something like that.
Some type of desk duty.
Something. Yeah. You won't be flying anymore. So especially if you make it on the news, like you're done. So a buddy of mine, JJ Racaza, famous shooter. He's an international iron sight shooter. I'm not sure if you know who he is.
I've heard the name before. Yeah.
Yeah. He was from my area. Known him for years. He became very, very good at shooting. He was a competitive shooter all the way through middle school, high school, college, got recruited out of college to go join the Air Marshals. And he was recruited to that show, Top Shot.
Yes. Yeah. History Channel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was on season 1. And guess what? His days of flying were over. Instantly. He never disclosed what he did other than he's a federal agent, but that was enough. And they said, okay, you can still work for us, but you're going to be an instructor now at the academy. You're going to go teach guys how to shoot because you're such a good shot. And that was it. He retired. He left. He's like, you know what? I think I'm just going to do my own thing. So he opened up his own pistol company out in Vegas, and he owns his own store and sponsored shooter. So working for himself.
Yeah, work for yourself. And then you know what? Then you can instruct anybody you want. You're not beholden to the regulations and the style.
Correct.
And the government bureaucracy
for the man. He's not working for the man anymore.
No, exactly. I mean, let's be honest. We've all done that for long enough.
it's a good lifestyle. Like the man sometimes takes care of you.
Yes.
Especially if you achieve that coveted pension, that retirement, whatever it is, like the man does have nice benefits if you can last that long. So I was always trying to transition from federal to local or local to federal. And it just kept seeing like, I couldn't get out of that wheel, like that never ending mouse wheel, that trap. It just like, you get stuck with the money is good. You're comfortable working, you're going to be every day. Next thing you know, you're married, you buy a house, you're engaged. And it's like, damn, it's like, I guess I'm staying here. I'm vested. It's been a bunch of time. There's probably no one's going to hire me because I'm older now. And you just kind of get comfortable. So I ended up walking out from my old PD, took an early retirement. And then lo and behold, I get the offer for federal. And I'm like, son of a bitch.
And now how old are you at this point? Because you said you did like 13 years. So
this is actively current. This is something that's pending.
Oh my God.
So it came like 2 years late because like I wanted this opportunity like years ago. I've been applying for years. I've been applying to go federal, either marshals or DEA or feds or ATF. And now it comes. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like now that I'm no longer even involved in law enforcement, I'm trying to focus on business, trying to grow my company. And now I have this choice again. So I'm like, ugh. So we'll get to that in a minute. But I was, I think we were just winding down my law enforcement career. We were at the dinner with my wife. We were at a pizza place near me. And there was a wooden flag, like what you have behind you, but much more rustic, much more farm burnt, rustic. And she's like, that's beautiful. Could you make one for the house? I'm sure. So at the time we just bought a house, and, with every house purchase, if you're a man, you should have like a lawnmower, a table saw, a miter saw, a couple hammers, some plumbing, wrenches, basic stuff, just in case something goes bad. And I was like, yeah, I can make that. So I broke out the miter saw, broke out the table saw, went to Home Depot, bought some wood, went to Michael's, I bought some stars. And there we go. It was my first flag. It was like about 2 years ago, June of 2019, like 2 years ago and 2 months. It wasn't that long ago. Memorial Day weekend, 2019. And then threw it on social media and had a couple friends like, in the local area say, hey, can you make me one? Can you make me one? I'm like, sure, no problem. How much do you want? I'm like, how much do these go for? So then you go online, you Google how much a wooden flag goes for, and you're like, oh, well, the first one I made was 50 inches. So what's a 50-inch flag go for? And it's like $500.
I was just going to say $500.
I'm like, $500. I'm like, that sounds like a fair price. And then, can you make a blue line one? Sure. Can you make another blue line one? Sure. And then at the time, my good friend of mine, who was he owned a low voltage electrical company in Jersey City. And he's like, hey, can you come be my foreman? He's like, I need somebody who knows how to read blueprints, need someone that had to like turn wrenches and oversee the guys who I can trust. I'm like, sure, no problem. So I went and was a foreman for him, part-time, off and on, transitioning to full-time. And then did that for maybe a year as like I kind of dabbled in the wood stuff. And then the minute I started driving to work, and I was like, I gotta go to Brooklyn today. Like, son of a bitch, I gotta go to Queens today. And I had a work van, and I was paying my own tolls, paying my own gas, but I had a work van. And then I started looking back, and I started looking at all the flags in my garage that were kind of accumulating yet to ship out. And I'd be like 500, 400, 300. There's more money in my garage than this guy's paying me from Monday to Friday. I'm like, why am I going to work still? Like, it's a part-time job. I'm not crushing myself trying to, So I'm like, why am I going to work if I'm making more money in my garage, not commuting anywhere? No tolls, no traffic, nothing. I was like, all right, let's try this. So like within like a matter of a week or two, I told my boss, Marco, I was like, hey, I think and he knew I was making them. He knew I brought them to work. I would deliver them on the way home from work. I
Of
drive the work
course.
van, throw them in the work van. I said, I think I'm gonna scale my hours back. I'm like, I got some work in the garage that's kind of, keeping me from being here. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, take the work van home, take a couple weeks off, catch up, and then come back. I'm like a trap. I'm like, it sounds like a trap.
Yeah.
I said, keep the work van here, let other guys use it. I'm gonna Uber home and take my tools because I got a lot of work to do. And he's like, take the work van. I said,
You,
no,
I,
that's
I,
a
I know what
trap.
this is. I
This
know
is
what this is.
then I have your property in my driveway and I feel obligated to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So let me take an Uber home. And his dad came out. He's like the owner. And he's like, listen, Mike, take the work van. We don't need it. Take some space here. Just bring it back whenever you're ready to come back. I said, all right, fine. So they both went in and I called an Uber and jumped an Uber and left their van right in the street, parked, the keys were in it. Sorry, guys. Like, I'm not falling for that trick. So,
But there's also a level of there's a commitment on your end.
I'm
Cut that
responsible.
tie.
I'm
'Cause
responsible for that van now.
Yeah. And not only that, it's also a way back. It's an easy way
It
to kind of
is.
quit your new business because I
Exactly.
have this van. I could just get in the van tomorrow and they'll take
Go-
me back.
Go get
And
his
I have a job.
paycheck. Yep, go get a paycheck. And I didn't
Yep.
want that. I really wanted
No.
to try like full cut the umbilical cord. So left on good terms, told him like, listen, I'm probably gonna need 2 weeks to catch up and I'll keep you posted.
Mhm.
Okay, no problem. And then that was it. It was like orders were coming in, Instagram started, using hashtags, like researching what hashtags to use. I can't need to come up with the names. I'm like, oh, what kind of name can I use? So I actually went on like a search engine for like small business names and
Mhm.
like you type in a bunch of things, like you type in like your background, what it is that you want to do, LLC, and you type in all this thing. And it's an engine that just derives different business names. And one of them came up with Veteran Woodco. And I was like, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm like Veteran Woodco. I'm like, I like that. I'm like, but then you can't use company. You can't use the word co because co is a derivative of company. You can't actually use that in your name without a DBA. Like you need, like McDonald's is a company, Coca-Cola is a company, like, Pfizer is a company. I'm not a company. You are not a company. We're one people. Like we're one persons. So I had to get an LLC and then do a DBA in Veteran Woodco so I could advertise with Veteran Woodco. So then I'm like, that has a good ring to it. And then, started off with badges and flags and guy down the street. I started getting my wood from a supply house, Boards and Beams. I'll give them a plug because they're a fantastic little wood supply house.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, hey, we have a CNC guy here that he can cut anything you need. I'm like, what's a CNC? He's like, it's like a big router thing. And I was like, huh. I was like, let me go check it out. So then I go check it out. And first time in my life I ever saw a CNC machine ever. And I was like, that's interesting. At that point, I've already welded, gone to sheet metal school. What else? Taking classes on electrical, you name it. I just never seen a welder. I was like, this is interesting. Oh, sorry, never seen a CNC machine.
Mm-hmm.
So I met this kid, Chris. Nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, listen, I need some stars cut in this blue piece of wood. It's going to be an American flag. So I'm bringing him all these different unions, like, pre-cut unions to just cut stars in. He says to me, he's like, you can buy a small one for like $2,000. He's like, you could do this in your garage. And I was like, serious? He's like, yeah, dude. He's like, this is like a $30,000 machine. You can buy a small one, probably finance it nowadays. He's like, and you'll be cutting on your own. I said, no way. He's like, yeah, dude. He's like, I'll send you some websites and I'll even give you some free programs to play with. Really cool kid.
There's a lot of open source programs, a lot of free stuff that you can work with. I mean, there's all sorts of shit now.
And that's how it started. It was purchased a Inventables X Carve. It was like a 30-inch by 30-inch small 110 volt DeWalt router CNC machine. Assembled it in the garage, built it like it was all just like a big erector set, and then just had at it for just got after it. Started learning, diving in, using these programs every day. He gave me this program called Vectric. It was like, I had never used a CAD program before in my life. So I'm just so overwhelmed looking at this program. Everything's dotted lines and this, that, and the other thing and tools. And I'm like, the only thing I had ever used up to that point was Microsoft Paint. Like I was never a big computer guy.
Right.
So I was like, what the hell am I looking at? And so started diving into this CAD program and coming up with different designs and working with different programmers. And next thing you know, it's the orders are stacking up. Time for an Etsy store. Okay, cool. Etsy store is launched. Veteran Woodco on Etsy. Yeah. And then you know what? Let's do a website while we're at it. So we get a website. We get the website up and running. I think my first platform was through Etsy. Yeah, it was through Etsy. And then about a year later, which was last year, I transitioned to Shopify.
Right.
So somewhere in the middle, I think July was the LLC. And then over the winter, I started making more signage, less flags. I kind of realized that there was more money in signs than there were in flags, because flags are kind of like a dime a dozen, whereas like a cool sign is not as easily accessible.
Well, the flag market is, let's be honest, it's saturated.
Flooded. Yeah.
If you Google flag, rustic, wood
Wooden.
flag,
Yep.
doesn't make a difference. Epoxy finishes, just painted. You can get them not painted, so you could paint them yourself. I mean, there's just thousands of them out there.
It's like a Ford Mustang or a Chevy
Yeah.
Camaro. It's like they're every corner you can find one.
Everywhere.
You know, Dodge Neon or whatever. So I was like, you know what? I was like, I think I'm going to start trying to target like proper audiences and make some decent money. I can't compete with what's already out there. I'm going to take what I'm doing and kind of transition that into like signage, because it seems like a cooler. The problem with that I had with in being a cop is that I worked in a very small town, and I was doing the same exact patrols every day, all day. 2.5 square mile town, right? My section to be like patrol was like quarter mile by quarter mile, like every day, and there's only 4 cops working. So it's like, you see the same deli 30 times, seen the same school 30 times. And I was like, every day I was like, this is killing me.
Literally the same dude is on the same street corner at the exact same time every single day.
Yeah, it was killing me. So I was like, I tried leaving so many times, like different agencies, different whatever. So then I'm like, well, now I'm making flags. How many times can you cut 13 stripes before you just, before you just check out mentally? Like I go nuts. I just like variety. I like to have a different, atmosphere. I like diversification, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So diversity. So I started doing signs. I'm like, let me transition and incorporate more logos onto these flags, and then we can incorporate the logos into signs and kind of scale back on the signs without telling anybody we're scaling back on the flags. Like put little signages on flags, then make big signages and kind of scale back the flag. So it's kind of like we're going to do like a magic trick right in front of you. You're not even going to see it happening.
Yeah. Don't look over here. There's nothing.
Flags, and then flags and logos, flags and logos, flags and logos, logos. Where'd the flags go? Low flags are gone. Like we're not doing flags. I actually had on my website for a long time, we do not sell wooden, like plain wooden American flags. Like we just don't do it. Right. Because I'll just recommend you to go to Flags of Valor, or like recommend you to go to the guy down the street to buy one. So that was it. Decided to do this full time. I'd say like this, I left the job, electrical work, and then the whole thing with the whistleblower, there was a massive settlement with my work. And that's what, you see funded most of my shop. So,
listen, your shop, I'm just looking in the background here. This ain't some cheap ass woodworking shop. This is some high-tech stuff. I've seen a lot of your videos with your CNC equipment that you have currently, laser cutters, laser engravers. You have like an outdoor area that you use into epoxy now, according to what I saw, like almost like a shed type thing.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I mean, you put some cash into this.
Yeah, there's about $100,000 in here.
I was going to say, yeah.
Like I had to like level the slab because the slab was crooked, and then, new insulation, new wire, because we had to upgrade all the circuits. And it was either going to be like, listen, I could work with what I have now, like work with the existing infrastructure I had and use a small machine, or I invest a lot of money and then in turn try to turn a lot of money out based on the type of equipment. Like you got to spend money to make money regardless of what the business is. So I was like, you know what, if I'm going to be working in here all day long, I'm going to need air conditioning. I'm going to need heat. I'm going to need insulated walls. Like you have to be comfortable. Otherwise you'd be miserable. So we did that. That was like the infrastructure build was like, gut the walls, new insulation, new wire, new circuits, like sub panels, the whole deal. Put the flooring in, and then it was like, okay, cool. Like, what do I need? Like, what do I need? What can one man function with here comfortably without getting too crowded? So then, I went to like my CAD program. I just started like sketching up like, okay, cool. I could have a cabinet wall here. And then I want a full size CNC machine here. And then I want a workbench in the middle with a table saw with an outfeed table. And I just started like designing my ideal shop. And that just turned into like one thing led to another. I started shopping around for a CNC machine because I knew I wanted to go bigger. I became so proficient in operating the small CNC machine. I would literally do it with like, without even a cup of coffee, like sleep in my eyes. I'd walk out there, I'd boom, run it, go back, have breakfast, and then I come back and it was done. And I'm like, all right, this is getting too easy. I want to go faster. I want to go bigger. I want to be able to cut, more material. I want to be able to take on larger jobs because larger jobs in turn will turn a higher profit. So I started looking for different brands of CNC machines that I could invest in. And a buddy of mine pointed me to this direction of the Stepcraft, which is it's behind me now. Stepcraft's the brand of machine that I pursued. Initially it was a different brand and they were a little more expensive. And the power requirements for the utilities coming into the house was much higher, and I would have had to get a probably new transformer outside, and like the neighbors would have hated me, and the whole block would have surged, and it would have taken up too much real estate in my garage. So my requirements were like, I need something that's going to be efficient, that's going to be powerful, can do full sheets of material, but also needs to be tight to the wall. I can't have it like, I can't have this 2-foot buffer around the machine where it needs to have like a safety space to operate. So Stepcraft was it kind of hit the nail on the head with their machine. Drove up to Stepcraft in Connecticut, met the guys, introduced myself, showed me a tour of the facility, shook hands, and then, anticipated them delivering a machine within the next few months. So the machine came in March of 20 was when the machine got delivered. And then it's kind of just been all downhill from there. So my new, I specialize now, it's like custom signage. Like we do some epoxy work. Like I do try to do some epoxy work, like the custom epoxy tables you've seen. If I do a flag, it's going to be extremely custom with some sort of logo or an engraved plate or a frame on it. Like nothing that is just going to be found on Etsy. It's usually very high end. Like I typically do routine flag gifts for the DEA in Newark. Like they like to give this blue line flag with this logo. So like I'm constantly making the same flag over and over and over. And it's something they give out for their office. Same thing with the FBI, but like this stuff, I won't really advertise that on my Instagram just because it's kind of sensitive. And then that's it. I'm just, Etsy's doing well, website's doing well. Still working for myself. The first year was great. Like I'm really shocked at how well I was able to do my first year, despite the expenses we incurred, in terms of like building the shop out. Like it took a lot of money to build this out and to buy all the material over the last year, just to kind of have like a surplus of material that I could kind of pick from. And then I was very fortunate enough to get sponsored by both Stepcraft. Now that I'm a customer, they've identified me as somebody that they like to align themselves with in terms of like social media and making me a rep. So I'm now a rep for Stepcraft. I do earn a commission, and I think I'm their only rep in the whole country. And then we're also working on possibly opening up like a facility where I could operate out of that would also serve as like a showroom for Stepcraft.
Very cool. Because they're a German company, correct?
They're Germany, but it's kind of like BMW. They have BMW Germany, and then there's a BMW USA.
Okay.
So they were born and bred in Germany, but there's a USA division. But all the parts still come from Germany. So if you're getting them in the US, it's from Germany on a ship, and then it's either built or assembled or manufactured or put together in the US. So that's who I deal with. And then tools today is this orange sign over here over my shoulder. They supply me with all bits and blades, cutting material, anything like that's sharp that you could potentially hurt yourself with. They supply me with that. So they're a great company. They're also a veteran owned company, all, believe it or not, Israeli veteran. So IDF guy. And then his employees, he's got a couple of US Army veterans working for him in New York City. So they're local to you.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
I
think they're in Farmingdale, their manufacturing plant.
It's not too far from where my daughter goes to daycare.
Yeah. So they're Amana Tools, and Tools Today is one of my other sponsors. And then what else? Like just some small like Woodpeckers is like a brand of wood that I use, and they'll send me some things. So I've managed to have like to grow quite exponentially on social media just through some of the projects I've done. Somehow, some way, people have kind of sought me out to do like memorial projects for, people that have passed, or like very like a high profile recognition pieces. Case in point, the Capitol riots, like the DC Capitol, Washington Capitol, the riots that were on January 6th. The officer Brian Sicknick was hit in the head with the fire extinguisher and then had the seizures and strokes the following day. And then again in April, when I think it was Evans was hit by the car that rammed him and essentially absolutely destroyed them. They reached out to me to do like these massive high profile memorial pieces for the Capitol building. So like, and then with that comes like a tour of the Capitol building, like all the way up to the Rotunda, Sunset, over DC. Like I'm doing all these ridiculous presentations. And that was kind of like the idea of like when I started doing the deliveries, when I started making things for people, if they were within like an hour or two drive from me, I would always make it a point to like, hey, let's set up a delivery date. We'll do a surprise. I'll deliver it in person. We'll blow the person's. If it was a surprise gift, I would always
make it like an event. Make it a whole thing.
It was like, what was that show? Like, move that bus.
A home makeover.
Yeah, it was like that. So people would buy gifts like from me for their spouse or partners or whoever, and then I would show up and like they'd recognize me, and I'd be like, hey man, I got something for you, and they would freak out. And that's kind of transitioned to like now these government entities, like a ton of government entities are reaching out to me like, hey dude, like, can you make us this? Can you make us this? And I was last month, I was dropped off to the US Marshals here at a local airport, and I got a tour of their surveillance aircraft. Like,
Wow, that's fun.
Stuff like no one's supposed to see ever. Like, they're bringing me in the jet. Like, here's this giant eyeball on the bottom of the jet. Like, he's like, we could read your license plate from 10,000 feet up. And he's like, we could shoot IR on your house for the night vision guys, like, to come out and hit your house at night. And I'm just like, what? And I'm just getting these ridiculous tours. I had an active duty Army general came to my house, and then I'm meeting with the director of the US Marshals down in DC with lunch. Like, we're having lunch together, and I'm giving him a coin holder. It's just like, it's really cool how like this business has allowed me to kind of network and transition all the way from like, when I first started with this small CNC machine, cutting things by hand. And now it's like the projects that I'm taking on are pretty wild. And like a lot of times the clients I find more enjoyment just talking with the clients than I am actually making the project.
Well, you can feel them out. You get to almost do like what I do, which is just sit down and talk to people and do the interview. You get to hear about their entire lives and backgrounds and stuff. And then you can tailor your product to them with that information that they're giving. I saw that, I believe it was a riot shield.
Right.
That thing came out amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was cool as hell. I showed my father that, and he's like, what is that thing? I'm like, it's a riot shield. He made it. I mean,
a ballistic shield. Yeah.
It's crazy.
That was for a kid who I met. I went through like a 3-day CQB course down in Fort Dix with a bunch of dudes. And like one of the teams there was the NYPD SWAT team and Port Authority SWAT team.
Mm-hmm.
So they were part of the units that we were with. And I linked up with this kid. He was a Marine. His name's Lorenzo. And we just kept in touch. We just hit it off, kept in touch. And I've done a couple things for him. And then he hits me up. He's like, hey man, I'm finally going through SWAT school, like with the NYPD issue. He's like, can you make our graduation plaque? I'm like, sure. And I'm like, send me a picture of the wall of what everyone else has made over the past couple of years. Cause I want to see what am I like, not in competition with, but I don't want to like make you something boring or make something too ridiculous.
Right.
I want to see what the other classes have made, because every class is responsible for each individual graduation plaque. So there was one other riot shield, but it was made out of wood and it looked like, And I was like, we could do better than that. So
yeah, we're gonna have some fun now.
yeah, just like, I'm like, what do I have, or what can we use that would be black with a clear shield? Like, oh, okay, acrylic. Like we use acrylic. Well, how do you bend it? Okay, we got to figure out how to bend it now. And like, let's bolt it to the black and then bend the black. And like, it just looked awesome. So
you actually did something that it was an idea that I had a while back, and I've always kept it in the back of my head, but you actually did it, which is the hugely obnoxious challenge coin.
Oh yeah. Which one? The Marshalls ones? Yeah,
the really big ones.
The 36-inch round ones.
I love it, because I always said to a buddy of mine, I love challenge coins. I think they're great, because I think people have a lot of fun with designing them, and there's some really unique ones out there. But I also find the humor in them, in the Article 15 world and the Range 15 movie, when they say it's Pogue Dynamite and you'll do anything for a challenge coin, because it's so true. You know what I mean? Especially in like the Air Force world, you get like this weird challenge coin, be like, oh my God, I got coined by the general. Like, really, who gives a shit?
I was never ever into it. I got a couple coins when I was in the Marine Corps. Probably left the Marine Corps with like 20 coins that I didn't even ask for.
Yeah.
Like
then, I think I ended up with like you said, about 20 or so, 20. Just from being in strange places and stuff. Like I did the inauguration, you get a coin for that, stuff like that. But I always said that if I designed my own coin, I would make it like this freaking big. So you would have to like put it in your pocket. Like I wanted it to be the most obnoxious thing known to man. Wow. And then I saw that you made these 36-inch coins. Dude, I'm like, there you go.
6 of them. Yeah. So this guy hits me up. He was a U.S. Marshal in Mexico, and like the emails I get are so funny, because like guys are super humble. Mm-hmm. And he's like, hey, my name's Henry. I'm looking to get this done. Can you do it? I'm just like, sure. So I look at the images. I'm like, hey, I need these in PDF. Yeah, no problem. Here's PDF. I'm like, cool. Great. How many you want? 6. And I was like, 6.
Whoa. Okay.
How big? And he's like 36-inch round. I'm like, great. And then we're just going back on email with Henry. And I was like, all right, great. I'm like, here's my estimate. And it was pricey. It was five figures,
Yeah.
And I was like, here you go. And he's like, cool. We'll have it paid today. And I was like right away, I'm like, how? I ran outside. I'm like, babe, we're going to Vegas, Like, how do you
blowing up?
Yeah. Like, how do you manage that? So I was like, all right, let's figure out what I'm going to cut this with. And it's like, I had never done anything at that point, like that big. So it was just like, make 1 and then make 2 and then make the rest of them identical. And then turns out like Henry is now the deputy director of the U.S. Marshals.
Jesus.
Like we're having lunch in DC together because I've made 3 more pieces for him. Like he's just like, and he's a former Marine, believe it or not. So I'm like, this is a good networking opportunity. He's a repeat customer and he's a great guy. But that was that was one of my bigger like showcase pieces. Like if I had a gallery, I would definitely put those pieces in that gallery.
No,
Yeah,
they came out amazing.
they were
And
cool.
when I saw it, and it was like that. See, that's what I'm talking about. Like make them big, make them huge.
They were you. They were,
yeah.
Yep.
I think there's a picture on your website of you standing next to them, and they're like, they're
Yeah,
half your body.
when I make big stuff, I like to model myself next to it, just like to give yourself like a comparison of like
how big scale.
How big is this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the other big thing that you do that I really like is you have this social media presence, and you're using it for 2 things, I think. One, you're letting people into your shop so that they can see and maybe sparking ideas for them, but you're also doing like Zoom classes. You're passing on some of this knowledge to other people, which, listen, you could easily charge big bucks for classes.
Right.
You could definitely do that. Nobody would fault you for it.
No, yeah.
You're helping the next group.
There's a reason behind it. There is a reason behind it. And it's a business. It's definitely a business move. Like it's going to be monetized at some point, like, but I'm just not cashing that check out right now.
Right.
So the idea was, I haven't said his name and I won't say his name, but there was a very popular maker in the community who was charging for Zoom classes, but he didn't have a CNC machine. He doesn't have a laser. So I'm like, what the hell is he charging for? He's charging for like painting and cutting techniques. And I was like, what? Like you go on YouTube and just all day long. Yeah. So I was like, people are really paying. He was talking about how booked up he is, book now. I'm like, wait, there's no way. At the same time, I was getting requests on Instagram for like, hey man, I need help with my Vectric design. I need help with a toolpath. How did you do this? How did you do that? So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do one better. I'm going to make it for free. I'm going to offer it for free, right? Not because, yeah, the money would be great, but I want people to learn. I want to create a community. And there's this whole term, I'm sure you've heard of it, community over competition.
Yep.
Right. The guy that was offering the service has a full-time job with the US government. Why are you charging for like a couple minutes of your day?
What are you probably getting? 15 bucks here,
15,
20 bucks there.
Like, yeah, what are you getting? Like now I'm running a business. This is my sole bread and butter. I'm going to offer it for free because here's how I kind of perceived it to come back. And it's kind of working. It wasn't like I schemed. I just figured like if you give, like karma, you give and you give and you give, eventually, things should come your way. Big believer in karma, always give. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to offer it for free. This guy, he's offering this bullshit. It's community over competition, but he's actually not, because he's charging his community for his information when he's essentially a social media influencer with the amount of followers he has, but he's not using his influence in a positive way because he's charging you to answer a message. Like he won't even look at your message unless you pay him. And I was like, that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Let's see if people can put their money where their mouth is and kind of accept this whole community over competition and what it actually means. It means like, unless you're a direct competition of mine, like business, and we're making the same product and you're next door to me or you're in my zip code, like I'm not worried about you. Like, right. Like there's plenty of customers out there. So I started offering these weekly Zoom classes because I started getting a lot of requests for just like design work on computers, So I was like, you know what, rather than me take time to kind of go through and hit up everyone's request, I'll do it on one night during the week. And it was a buddy of mine's idea. He's like, dude, you should just do a one week of Zoom, one Zoom a week, whatever it is, or every other week. He goes, and make sure you tell everyone when it is. And like, that way you answer all the questions at once and you're done for the week. And I was like, cool. So I started doing that. And like our first week, we had like 8 viewers, and then we had like 10, and then we had 16, and now sometimes 20. And it's a great time. And I'll jump on Zoom, and usually on Thursday night at 8 o'clock, I'll jump on my Zoom meetings. And then at the same time, I'll stream like the first 5 minutes of it on Instagram, just so people who are on Instagram will see it. Then they can run over and jump on the Zoom. Right? If they're interested. So then I did that for a few weeks, and then lo and behold, what happens? Vectric, the computer program, the CAD program that I'm using, reaches out to me and says, hey, you're doing a phenomenal job. We're getting tons of reviews on your instruction and your video and how clear and concise you're guiding new members through our program. How would you like to be sponsored by us? Oh, by the way, how would you like to be a guest speaker at our user seminar this year? There you go.
Come on. There you go.
Thank you. So the seminar was supposed to be at San Diego. It's going to be September 11th, September 12th. It was just canceled because COVID. they're from the UK. It's a UK based program. So they're like, listen, we just don't want to take the risk, but they're going to do an online thing. So we're working on an online seminar right now, user group. And regardless, their software costs $2,000 and I haven't had to pay for it yet. So
those Zoom classes already paid, if
paid
not
off.
double what, like you said, what are we going to charge? $15, $20
$20
an hour?
So what I did then was like, there's like I'm not sure if you've heard of the Maker Community Project yet. Have you heard of like?
I have. Yep.
So I'll kind of dive into that and where that came from was like,
please.
It's a nonprofit that we've started. And it kind of ties into the Zoom and it kind of ties into not charging for the work because we're going to kind of pick it up on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
It was right when I was getting this machine from Stepcraft, I was up there shaking hands, meet and greeting guys. They had a smaller version of my first machine in the corner gathering dust, different brands, like not a Stepcraft. And I asked the owner, Eric, I was like, what are you doing with it? And he goes, oh, we used it for R&D and there's really nothing we can do with it. We can't sell it because we're like, who's going to sell it? We all work for the company. Like,
right.
It's like a Ford selling a Chevy. You just don't do it. He goes, and so it's just kind of just sitting here rotting away. And I was like, you want me to sell it for you? He goes, sure. I was like, I'll sell it for you. I have an account on the forums. I could sell it for you. He's like, yeah. He's like, I want $700 for it. He's like, mark it up for 1,000. You keep 300 about it. Okay, no problem. So I go online, I list it for $1,000 and I get this kid that inquires and he's like, hey man, I want to buy some pieces off your machine. And I said, oh, we're not parting it out. We're just selling the whole thing. Shipping's probably going to be a couple $100 depending on where you live because it's big. He's like, no, I just want a couple pieces. He's like, can I have your phone number so I can tell you why? And I'm like, sure. So I give him my cell and he calls me and like right away, I can tell there's something off, like right away. It was very broken, disabled voice that I heard, like very, very disabled. And I was like, hi, this is Mike. And he's like, hey, this is Eric. It didn't sound like that. And I was like, hey man, nice to meet you. He's like, nice to meet you. And I was like, what's going on? And then we FaceTime and then it became very clear that I was dealing with somebody with a severe disability who happens to have a CNC machine and he needs parts for his machine. Because his machine is so old, the company no longer supports it. But I just happen to have an older brand new version sitting here that he could use and benefit. So he tells me how he has this older machine, which is the same one I'm selling, and he just needs a few parts from it. And the company, Inventables, doesn't support the platform anymore, but here I am with a brand new version of it for sale. And he would like to have parts of it, if not the whole thing, but he can't afford it because he doesn't work, because he can't work. So we start FaceTiming and then he tells me he was in a motorcycle accident a couple of years ago. He's my age, 38, 39. And he's in a motorcycle accident and he's partially paralyzed. He's in a wheelchair for most of his day. He's got no fine motor skills. He's got severe TBI. And like, you could tell, like, it's not like it's hard to figure out.
Right.
So
like you said, you knew it just from the phone conversation,
right away.
let alone.
Yep. Right away. I heard it in his voice. And where I worked with law enforcement, like we had a very, very large disabled community within our community. Like we just did. So we were constantly dealing with mental illness issues. Mm-hmm. So I picked up on it real quick and I was very empathetic towards him. And then I told him, like, listen, it's not really not my machine to sell. I'm like, I'm just kind of brokering it for somebody, but I'll reach out and see what he says. So I call Eric back up and I was like, hey man, like, how would you feel about doing something really nice that would kind of warm your heart? And he's like, what's up? And I'm like, there's this kid on the forums who's disabled and he's looking for some pieces from the machine and he can't afford the whole thing, but he just wants to give us a couple dollars for some parts. He's like, do it. And I'm like, cool. So when Eric delivered this machine, he brought the spare and then I created it up, palleted it up. Didn't tell him what he was. I just said, what's your address? We're shipping you something. And we shipped him a brand new, like ready to go.
Full machine.
Awesome. Granted, it wasn't Stepcraft. It was a different brand, but it was still brand new. So kid loved it. Absolutely loved it. We talk every day. He FaceTimed me earlier. This was 2 years ago. So as we talk every day, I teach him Vectric. I have no problem taking 5-10 minutes out of my day to show him something. We'll do Team Viewer. We do Zoom. Mm-hmm. He's like, hey man, I can't figure out this toolpath. I'm like, cool. What's your, I'll log in his computer and I'll show him what he's doing wrong. So that's kind of where I got my first taste of like instruction via like computer. And I liked it. It was like, it's fun. Mm-hmm. So then he starts like, he's making flags. He's making this. He's starting to like really come around. He's making some really cool work. And he's got this DeWalt table saw, which is just like, it's like begging to be fed blood. This thing is nasty. It's loud. It's aggressive. It vibrates when you cut. And he filleted his palm open. Like about 3 months ago, he filleted his palm open. And then like 2-3 weeks later, the tip of his finger gets chunked off. So he calls me up. He's like, man, I'm in the hospital again. And I was like, let me see. And it's just like, it looks like his hand was mangled. And I'm
Just
like, Eric,
mauling yourself, man.
I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, I can't use my left hand because it's like, this doesn't work. So he's like, and I've only can push stick with the one hand. And so the left hand just rests there and the right hand I slipped. And I was like, fuck, you need a saw stop in the worst way.
Yeah.
He's married and he has 2 kids. His wife's single family, like, income, like sole family income. 2 kids are young, like they're like 6 and 8, maybe. They're tiny. So it's like, he doesn't have money to be spending on this stuff. And he's not going to stop cutting. Like, he's just going to keep going until he's got no fingers left. So I was like, I would love to raise money for him. I would love to give him the money. Like, I would love to just give him the money, but I can't. My wife would kill me.
Right.
So I'm like, I would love to be able to raise money for him, but how would I do that as a business? So I'm like, well, I know there's nonprofits out there, and I know that's typically you can do a GoFundMe, but GoFundMes can be funny. Like, they could resonate awkwardly with some people depending on what the purpose of it is. So I'm like, I said to myself, I'm like, there's got to be more than just him out there. There's got to be more versions of him out there that need something, or that are hurt or injured or disabled from birth or whatever, that need help. There can't be just him. He's not the only guy. Of
course.
330 million or 350 million people, according to the new president.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Let's do this nonprofit thing. I talked to a couple friends about it, and they're like, yeah, it's super easy. Like, it used to be a pain in the ass. Now you go online, like legalzoom.com, and within a few
letters,
months,
boilerplate shit. Did you just do it?
Once you're in, it takes a couple months. You could legally start raising money. And I was like, cool, let's do it. So went online, thought of a name. I'm like, well, Maker is kind of a appropriate name. And then it's a community. It's definitely a community, and it's going to be an ongoing thing. So it's going to be continuous, because it's never going to be just one fundraising. It's going to be ongoing. So it's like a project, like a project car. It's never done.
Never done.
So I was like, let's do Maker Community Project. So typed it in, submit, let's go. And then that's just when he hurt his second finger. I was like, fuck, this kid's going to cut his fingers off. I was like, and by the time he's done, he's not going to have any fingers left to run his machine or his computer. Like, he's not going to have anything left to either design software.
Yeah.
If he's got no fingers left. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to pull a shotgun. I'm going to run an audible play on this one, and I'm going to jumpstart it. And if the IRS bangs me for it, then so be it.
Yeah, I'll deal with the fallout. I'll get the lawyer, whatever.
I'll pay 6 point whatever percent of whatever the money it is that we raise, because it's not going to be that much.
Right.
So I go on my website and I create this T-shirt called the Maker Community T-shirt, Make a Community Project T-shirt. And I jack the price up to $50. The shirt only cost me like $14, $13.
Yeah.
I was like, let me jack it up, type up a little blurb. All proceeds from this shirt go towards the Make a Community Project, which is a New Jersey nonprofit, yada, yada, yada. 100% of the proceeds go towards disabled makers and their family, or making a safer environment for them in their wood shop.
Right.
And then I reached out to some friends. I'm like, hey, what do you guys think? Who wants to be part of it? And I got about 10 teammates right now. That's what we're calling each other, teammates. I haven't formally announced them because I'm still waiting on their bios and their pictures, but there are 10 of us.
Excellent.
And the premise is this. I get asked a lot for advice during the day, and I'm only one guy with just about 10,000 followers. The other teammates, all together, we have about 500,000 followers. There's only 10 of us. So like, these guys have all been doing it way longer than I. And like, I look up to them in terms of like role models. Like, they've all been doing woodworking for 5-10 years. Like, they've been on Instagram for 10 years. They make money from YouTube. Like, these are guys with substantial followers. So I said, hey man, I got a proposition for you. I want to talk to you on the phone. What's your phone number? Complete strangers. Sure, man, here's my number. So I call them, introduce myself, and I tell them the story, and they're like, I'm in.
But how could you not be in? I hate to say it. Like, how do you say no to that?
Yeah, like, so here's everyone's like, well, we should do raffles. We should all make something and raffle it off. I'm like, no, that's not the idea, because then it's taking time away from your business. This is going to take no time away from anybody. All you got to do is share it whenever we're raising money for a campaign. So here's the premise. You have a following, I have a following, I have a following, he has a following, she has a following. We're all going to share the campaign. We're all going to have individualized t-shirts. So let's say like Tony has a following, whatever, it's going to be Tony's Woodworking, Veteran Woodco, KG Woodwork, Sawdust, whatever. And on the back, it's all going to have our own logo. And the front's going to say Make a Community Project, right? So we raise money. Somebody asks you for help. Somebody needs help. Rather than you charging them money, right? You just direct them to the website. If they buy Maker Community stuff gear, right? Then you give them your help. It's just like, that's how you generate income. Or if we're actively raising money for like a donation, you just share it. And if people feel the need, they can go online and donate the money or buy a t-shirt. So the first one we did was about a month and a half ago. And it was for a saw stop for our friend Eric in Colorado. And it was, to save his finger. And I reached out to a couple companies, and I got a lead on a saw stop that was just outside. He's in Colorado, so it was in Utah. And they're like, yeah, out the door, ready to go. It was like $3,600, like shipped with all the accessories, like ready to go. All he's got to do is kind of assemble it. And I was like, great, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Put it on the company credit card. Hit go on social media. 24 hours, $4,000.
Yeah.
So I was like, and it was just me. None of the teammates were involved. Just me. 10,000 followers, Instagram, 24 hours, $4,000. And I was like, wait a sec, that was just too easy. I didn't even ask the other 10 guys to share it. They probably shared it in their stories, but they didn't have a t-shirt. Like the website was not up and running yet, like nothing. It was just solely derived from donations and t-shirt sales. We did $1,000 in t-shirt sales in 24 hours. I'm like, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's one t-shirt, just one t-shirt. People bought it, 60 or 70 times. So we, purchased the saw stop, sent it out to Eric. He made a video, the guy delivering it, set up, and it's up and running. I'm like, this is fantastic. So that's the premise. The premise is,
what a great feeling.
Right. Like I totally helped this kid. Like God knows how many other times he could have been potentially injured on this terrible thing.
Terrible.
So the idea is just like, we're gonna have a team of makers, all guys who are high profile, who I feel have a kind heart, because I kind of like, you gotta have a kind heart to do it. There's some guys out there with big followers who I'm not even gonna waste my breath on.
Right.
But if
You're not going to align with anyway, so why do it?
Yep. I could feel your energy. I think you have a positive, aura around you. Like I could see you kind of giving back and interacting with your followers.
Mhm.
I think I want you on my team. So that was it. I got about 10 guys, and they're all like, yes, absolutely. So the premise is going to be, we're going to have one centralized website for the Maker Community Project. We're each going to have our own gear on that website. So if you want to buy a hat, a t-shirt, or whatever, that with like your favorite woodworkers stuff on the apparel, then you buy that, and all the proceeds, regardless of which account you come through, are going to go towards that Maker Community Project Fund, which is going to do like a quarterly, I guess, like an identification, like, mission to find out who are we going to target like this quarter, depending on how much funds we raise, to make them a safer or a better environment,
better world for them to be in.
Right.
But that's an awesome idea of how to use social media properly. And I say it all the time. There's so many people out there using social media for the weirdest shit known to man. Conspiracy theories. Everybody all of a sudden wants to be a political pundit and knows how the government works.
Yep.
And, meanwhile,
everyone an expert and everything.
Everybody's an expert.
Yep.
But like you said, in a day, you can raise 4,000. I just did a fundraiser, a race for One More Wave out in California. They make custom surfboards for the disabled. Love them. Yeah. They're awesome. Great guys. I've had them on the show. Just awesome people. When I talked to them, I was like, I want to work with you guys.
Okay.
In a month, I was able to raise enough money basically to outfit a rider. And I have no social following. I mean, compared to what you guys are talking about, you're talking 500,000 people.
500,000 followers. Yeah.
Yeah. I was able to do it with like my wife and mine. She runs a fasting website, and I have the podcast. That was it. We raised it in no time. No problem whatsoever. And enough to actually put the 5K on.
The money's out there. Like the people are willing to give it. Like you just have to have the right platform to do it. You got to have the right mission. I've seen some really messed up missions this past year, like some really like misaligned compasses. And I just like, all right, we're not going to do that. Like we're going to do opposite of that. And like, it's going to make us feel good about ourselves.
Yeah. You feel great. You really do.
That's the idea, is like, kind of giving back. Like, I was, my wife was a cancer survivor from a couple of years ago.
Okay. Wow.
She had lymphoma. Like I had foot pursuit at work, tore my knee, ended up getting sepsis, ended up having 5 knee surgeries within 1 year. And that was my last year as a cop. I'm like, I'm fucking done with this shit.
Yeah.
The next year, my wife gets cancer. So I'm like, oh my God. So then as she was kind of towards her last round, we did a big fundraiser at her college. We did a 3-on-3 soccer tournament with all of her graduating class. There was like 600 people that showed up.
That's awesome. That sounds fun.
You ready for this? 30 grand.
See, that's what I'm saying. People will give money. They don't care.
We took the money. We sold t-shirts. We did a 3-on-3 soccer tournament. It was like $300 a team. And then anonymous donor walks up, drops a check for like 10 grand, like totally anonymous. So we took the money, we just gave it back to the oncologist doctor, not the hospital, the doctor that was treating her specifically, because he has a research team. So we're like, here, this is going towards your research. Like, don't let anybody else touch it. Like, it's all for you. Yeah. I mean, it's probably nothing for him. It's probably like, salt in the water, but it's just the money's out there, and then you got to just be able to target the audience that you want. make sure you have a good talking point, like a good mission. Like with mine, like I try not to get too into Eric in Colorado, but like if I was to really like break down what it sounded like it would break your heart. Like it would get you all in the feels, as they say.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of important if you're going to be selling somebody. It's like you got to give them that hook. You got to give them the bait, and then kind of reel them in. It's like, hey, and this is the purpose. This is the why. So.
And you're going to get a good feeling by doing this, and we're going to do something good for somebody.
Yeah, it's going to be continuous. Like we're going to do this like either quarterly or monthly, depending on the funds we're able to raise.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I'm talking to guys right now already about next year's race, and I'm already looking forward to it. I'm already jacked up about it because I know whoever I pick to give the money to next year, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun, and they're going to be happy. I'm going to be happy. Everybody walks away smiling.
Fantastic.
It's fantastic.
I did a couple of like the first 6 months that I went full time. I tried to do one project a month for a donation, like a nonprofit.
Nice.
So we did like the Cal Palmieri Foundation. He was a New Jersey Devils hockey player. He's out with the Islanders right now.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So we did the Cal Palmieri Foundation. We made his sign for his banquet hall. And then I did a bunch of flags for local VFWs, a couple different signs for small veteran nonprofits in New Jersey. And then I hadn't really done one in a long time. Like it took, because I was blossoming and I got so caught up in work. You get busy, you forget what it's like to kind of give back. And it's like, now it's like, cool, this is going to be the new platform to do it on.
Right. Well, now it's going to be kind of integrated into everything that you're doing. So it won't ever take a back burner now, because now it's going to be, this is what we're doing. We're makers, and we're makers that help our community. And that's the important thing.
Because it's like, if you're going to throw that hat, and then if you check hashtag maker, what is it? Community over competition on Instagram. If you check that hashtag, it'll tell you how many times it's been used. It's healthy. Like it's like it's in the millions. It's in the millions. Yeah. So it's like, all right, people are able to say it, but like, are they going to put their money where their mouth is, so to speak? And it's kind of just an easy way to check people. Like, just go through someone's Instagram. If they've said it, cool, hit them up. Like, hey man, like I see you're a big supporter of the movement. Make sure you hit up our website and buy it and participate in the campaign.
Yeah. Help us out a little bit.
Help us out a little bit. Yeah. And use your platform to better the world, because it's like, we could really use it right about now.
Yeah. Well, I like it, man. Like I said, I was excited to talk to you, and I didn't even know about half this stuff. I just was watching a lot of the artistic side of it, because like I said, when me and my father get together, we just built his wood shop. He's recently retired, and we turned his garage really into a fully functional wood shop. We just got him a Laguna lathe. He's all excited. We sold his old Rockwell that it was out of like a wood shop in a high school. Like a wood shop. Yeah, it was old school, man. The thing weighed I think it weighed 1,000 pounds. It was ridiculous, but you couldn't move it. But now we just got air to all his tools now. Did shop air is great now. He's got shop vac through everything. He's doing wood turning. He does wood turning of bowls. We did this table. We did the flag. We did another flag for the race, which we auctioned that off and made a little money doing that.
That's awesome.
I just got a laser engraver to play with that. So I was doing some laser engraving on rocks. I was doing some coasters, stupid stuff, all just to give away. Cause I don't even want to make, I'm just doing it as prizes. Right. This girl, my buddy, who's a captain in the Air Force, his daughter won the race. So I made her this big plaque. I laser engraved it with her name and this whole thing, grand champion. She got such a kick out of it. It made her so happy. All these like the capital projects I've done, and I'm trying to think, there's a bunch. I'm doing one for the Boy. There's a local VFW that a Boy Scout. He's going to be an Eagle Scout graduate. Like he's commissioned me to help him do his graduation project, which is a new sign for the VFW. So both capital projects. And then there was one for there was a school up in New Hampshire. There was a teenager who passed away in a car accident. It was like a big round circle with a letter in the middle of it. And it was a memorial piece for this young boy who passed away. Any project that's a memorial piece or like a donation that somebody else is passing on, I make no money on. I charge, they pay for go straight. They go straight, pay for material, pay for cost, and call it even. So it's like, I feel terrible, like turning around and telling the Capitol Police that, hey, I know you lost your 2 best friends, but it's going to cost you $4,000 for me to make a piece of work for them. Like, no fucking way. No, just buy the material. And then the second one that we did was I felt bad even making them buy material this time. So I reached out to one of my vendors, Duna Chlorofoam is like that HDU product I use. And they're like, we'll give you free material. You got to come pick it up in Delaware. And I was like, I'll be there in a couple hours. Yeah. My father still gets free material. We get half the stuff we get is for free because we'll take scraps. We'll take, we'll build, my father will go to the lumberyard. You're throwing that shit out. We'll take it. Don't worry about it. We'll take it. We'll run it through the planer. We'll clean it up. It's been sitting outside, whatever. Don't worry about it. It's weathered now. Now it's perfect.
$3.99.
Yeah, whatever. Just put it on the account. Let's go.
Yeah, free $3.99 is the best.
It is the best price ever.
What else did we do? We did, I think we did veterans on the 48 this year. We did a hiking trip and we did a fishing trip and a golf outing. We sponsored like 4 vets this year. So
nice.
I think the first couple were like $125 and we just paid for their shirts. And then the last one was a golf outing in Ohio with, I forget the organization, but guys just hit me up on Instagram and I get hit up a lot. And like a lot of times if I don't like it, I'm just going to ignore it.
That's all.
It's because it's a solicited post. It's not like someone saying hello to me or like they're inquiring about business. It's just a solicitation. They're probably sending a dozen of them out.
Yeah, it's mass.
Yeah, but if I like it, I'll reply back. And this one guy hit me up, and then we had a FaceTime, and then I had him on Instagram Live, and he's like, "Hey man, we have a veterans golfing outing coming up," and he's like, "We could sponsor a vet." He wanted me to come out. That was the initial thing. He's like, "We'd love to have you come out and bring a prize, and we'll do a raffle, and you could golf." And I was like, "I would love to, but I can't take the time off from work."
No, there's no way.
Hey, I don't golf, right? I played hockey, but I'm like, I could probably hit the ball, but it wouldn't be pretty. But I said, I just don't have the time. I said, "Can I just sponsor a golfer?" He's like, "Yeah, of course you can." I'm like, "How much does it cost?" He's like, $500. I'm like, "Perfect. There you go." And then the kid calls me up in Instagram. We did a FaceTime, met the vet. He's an Army veteran, and we're bullshitting. He's like, "Dude, thank you so much. I could never afford." And I'm like, "This is great." And he got to golf. He got to golf with like one of the jacketed pro members. Like it was
nice.
Like his teammate.
It's awesome.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, dude.
Like you said, it's all good karma. In the end, it's really just all good karma.
Big believer in
and
karma.
It just helps you in the end anyway. Because you talk about being a successful business, something I learned from my father, and you're mimicking it just in a new age. But he would do stupid things like the pancake breakfast, and he would go out there and he would flip and, we'll do this, or he would bring sausage and peppers and baked ziti and stuff like that to the tile guys, the tile supply house. He cooked Christmas dinner for the lumberyard guys when they were doing their inventory. But that was the reason that he would get the free stuff later down the road, because they were like, Sam's a good guy. Yep. Sam's taking care of us. We're going to help him out.
Yeah, no, it's calculated.
Yep.
It's not intentional. It's calculated, but it also is like, it's putting out good energy. You got to put out good energy into the world.
Yeah.
Good energy attracts good energy. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Physics.
So we hit a lot of stuff here. Now I know you got work to do, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, because you got to go out there and make that money.
It's waiting right now.
It's waiting. It's sitting
waiting.
There. I see it.
The material's already on it. I'm just,
it's screaming at you. It says, "Turn me on." Where can people get more information? The Instagram handle, the website, all that. And talk to me a little bit about, if I put an order in now, what am I looking at before I would receive that?
Okay, we'll talk about that first.
Okay.
So typically, just to the amount of orders that I kind of have pending in the queue or the queue, however we're supposed to pronounce that.
Yeah.
I run about a two-month lead time. I tell everyone between 6 and 8 weeks, give or take. I do try to honor deadlines for official ceremonial purposes only. Like if there's a retirement, or someone's leaving your unit, or someone's going TDY or a different agency. Like if you have a hard deadline, you need to let me know up front, because I'll try to accommodate. But if it's just something that's decorative and, hey, I'd like to have this in my office, it's typically a 2-month wait. What was the next thing? You could find me. The website's veteranwoodco.com, www.veteranwoodco.com.
Very good.
And then Instagram is /veteranwoodco. Facebook is Facebook /veteranwoodco. YouTube is also /veteranwoodco. I do believe Etsy and is /veteranwoodco.
Nice.
But I go by no other names than that.
Nice.
Zoom typically Thursday nights. I try to do it every other weekend.
Okay.
They're all getting recorded, and I was uploading them to YouTube for a long time, but I find the materials kind of redundant, and it's just a lot to upload to YouTube, especially because they're not very exciting videos. It's more like, so if people want the copy of the recording when we're done, I'll shoot them a copy of the recording. But YouTube or social media, what we're talking about, Zoom is typically Thursday nights at 8 o'clock, like every other week or every third Friday of the month. And what else? We were doing like a Friday night live for a long time.
You were doing like a wine and wood, right?
Wine and wood, but that came around with COVID, because like nobody could leave and all the bars were closed.
I know.
So I was just like, let's just drink on camera and talk about, and that was strictly not like shop based. We talk about anything.
Yeah.
You know, other than CNC design and instructional, there was nothing.
It's just basically a bullshit session where you can just kind of hang out.
And that was a blast too. We did that, but I've dialed that back too, because like I got a ton of work and I really don't want my customers seeing me, you know, drinking and not producing work on Friday nights. Like,
right. It's kind of a tough sell if you're waiting for a project.
It is. So, hey, I couldn't get to your work this weekend. No, but you had 2 lives. You did a Zoom, blah, blah, blah. I saw you went racing in Oregon. That was a blast. We should talk about that. We should talk about that for a minute.
Go ahead.
So last weekend, over the course of Veteran Woodco, I've been introduced to a lot of kind of high profile veterans. Like I did the piece in Mike Ritland's office. I did the big coin holder from Mike Ritland, the Navy SEAL down in Texas.
Yep.
And then like I've done some pretty cool work. So a buddy of mine, like Johnny Walker, like Chris Kyle's former interpreter, like did work for him. He's been to my house. I've been to his house. It's pretty wild. Like all these cool dudes I'm meeting.
It's amazing.
One of these guys is Jason Piccolo, who's an Army veteran, former, I want to say Border Patrol. He was both officer enlisted, and now he still works for the government. He's kind of winding his career down. He's 2-time author, and he's like you. He does a podcast called The Protectors. His company's called The Protectors, right? So I did work for Jason, and over the course of our like relationship, I've met him down in DC a few times. He's from Jersey, and he told me, he's like, hey, I got a guy I served with in Iraq. He's an EOD, retired first sergeant. He runs a racing team on the West Coast, and he's looking for veteran drivers, like veterans who like to drive.
Right.
He's like, aren't you into cars? I'm like, I am into cars. He's like, you ever drive on the track? I'm like, oh yeah, all the time. Like,
English town, whatever. Yeah.
I'm not a drag racer. Like I like to actually turn the car and hit the brakes and like strategy. So he's like, I'll put you in touch with Daryl and you guys should connect. He's like, Daryl's looking for guys to drive his car. So I'm like, sweet. So called Daryl up, meet him on the phone. We did like a quick phone interview. What cars have you driven? How many stick cars have you owned? Like, what are your thoughts on this process in the car? Like, how do you downshift? Do you toe heel? Like all these like technical, like, you know, interview questions. He's like, I think you should come out and race with us one weekend. And I'm like, I'd love to. So last weekend I flew out to Oregon, and it was a 3-day event. It was a 2-day race. 3rd day was practice day on Friday. It was a 9-hour endurance race on Saturday.
Awesome.
6-hour endurance race on Sunday, going the opposite direction. It was like a 2.6 mile road course. It was 105 degrees on Friday. Oh, it was torture.
Brutal.
My face looked like this. It was like this red.
Yeah.
I've never been so uncomfortable and excited at the same time.
Yeah.
He has 2 Mustangs that he races, and it was in a field of Corvettes, Porsches, BMWs, like Miatas, Volkswagens, you name it. It was all the cars had to be 15 years or older. And the team, Daryl's team name is After Action Racing.
Yes, so, I actually have spoken to him. I know him. Yeah.
So I went and raced with Daryl and his team. So it's a quick plug for Daryl, because it is a veteran based. He was trying to do nonprofit, but he opted away from it for accounting purposes. But if anybody's listening and you guys are into cars and you're a vet and doesn't matter what coast you're on, if you guys want to try your hand or try your feet at open wheel racing, this team After Action Racing he's based out of Washington. They are looking for drivers.
It's awesome.
So, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've seen his Instagram. I started following him a little while ago, and I was like, this is because I was a mechanic in the Air Force.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was a vehicle mechanic. I started out as a general purpose mechanic, and then I moved on to like heavier diesels and stuff like that. But, you know, we were all just a bunch of mechanics hanging around who had a Volkswagen, you know, who had an Evo, who had this, you know, and when we were in Italy, you had these beautiful cars that were just used cars that we would pick up. Amazing.
When I was overseas, I tore my ACL. I was in the first embassy in India, and then I had to get. They said if you go back to the U.S. to have surgery, you're not coming back to the embassy program because it's too much money to fly you back, have surgery.
Yeah, you're done.
However, if you go to Okinawa and have surgery at one of the naval bases there, you can come back and rehab it here at the embassy. I said, I'll do that. So I go to Okinawa. I think I was walking. Yeah, I wasn't on crutches yet because no surgery yet, but I was limping around the base. I was on an officer only base because I worked for the Department of State, and because the cost of living we were getting, they chose to put me on the officer housing side of things. And it was like, I'm a sergeant. Literally, I'm like, my neighbor's a captain. She's an ensign. Like that guy's like the private rep for like a prosthetic company. And it was like, it was really cool. So I limped my ass up to the gym. I think it was Camp Hansen. So I limped over to the officer base, and out front was like this gorgeous golden R34 Skyline that I had never seen.
I was going to ask you if it was a Skyline. You said Okinawa, and right away I was like, it's a Skyline.
I had never seen one in my life, and like Fast and Furious just came out. Like I'm a car guy. I'm like, this is the coveted like car that every guy wants. Yeah. So I walk over and I see the owner. He's either closing it or opening it up. And I walk over and I'm like, hey, sir, is this your car? And he's like, yeah, it's my car, blah, blah, blah. And I guess he assumed I was an officer because you're on officer base and I had a tight haircut. He's like, oh, who you here with? And I was like, no, I'm actually from out of town. I'm here to have surgery. He's like, oh, yeah, what's going on? I was like, I tore my knee. He goes, Legregni? And I'm like, yeah, why? He goes, I'm your surgeon.
Oh, shit.
Nice to meet you. So I was like, no way. He's
No,
like,
we'll be fine. You can work on me anytime.
Yeah,
This is great.
He's like, you want to ride? I'm like, yes, sir. He's
Sir,
like,
I do.
He was the University of Michigan's orthopedic surgeon.
For the
9/11.
football?
Yeah, 9/11
Wow.
happened. He left and joined the Navy.
Wow.
So he was a good doctor.
That's
Good
pretty
doctor.
cool.
But it was a cool story. He's like, Legregni? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you know? He's like, I did your orders. I'm your surgeon. I was like,
Yeah.
no way.
I'm about to cut you open.
I'm gonna cut you open. He's like, you're not driving it, but I'll take you for a ride.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
all
not
right,
driving, but we'll go for a ride.
Let's go, sir.
Yeah. So, like I said, this has been a blast. I love talking to you. I'm a big fan of your work. I have to say, I was looking forward to just chatting about your work, but now I know that you're doing all this other stuff. It makes me feel good that you're out there, you start your company and you're giving back to the community, which is something we try to promote as much as possible on this show. So that's awesome to hear.
There is another aspect of like the Make Your Community project that I kind of want to touch on. I don't know if it's going to happen because the business could go one of two ways. So initially, like when I first had my smaller X carve a couple years ago, I was invited. I went to do a donation at a local VFW. It was like an event for underprivileged veterans who needed like business attire and resumes building skills.
Yes.
And they say, hey, Mike, would you mind coming by and bringing some of your artwork to donate it to some of the veterans? Because I'm sure they would love it. So I did. I brought a bunch of flags and some Punisher skulls and we donated it. One of the guys there asked me, he's like, hey, dude, would you mind coming to the local VA and speaking to my PTSD guys because like they could use a little pick me up. And I'm like, sure. Like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I'm like, sure, I'd love to come. I didn't know who my audience was going to be. I just knew that it was a PTSD therapeutic group that this guy held at the VA. So I go down to the VA like maybe a week later and I meet with this group and it was all young kids, like guys that were like younger than me. And I was shocked because I was expecting like old, decrepit war veterans who couldn't like wipe their own ass. I was like, oh my God, these kids are like 25, 26, all inpatient, either court order or mandated or by the family or something happened where they have to go to this program now. It's like a 3-month program, both for substance abuse and PTSD, either substance abuse or like PTS. So yeah. And they just said, hey, Mike, just talk, about your law enforcement career and how you started your own company and like, struggles and I also talked about my wife. I talked about my knee. I talked about getting arrested at the Marine Corps. I talked about the Marine Corps, like how I felt like leadership let me down and like you kind of have to make your own way. And I tried to relate to them, but again, I had no idea what they had gone through. So one of the kids in the back like raised his hand. He's like, yo, Mr. Mike, he's like, you should open up our wood shop in the basement. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, we got a wood shop and they closed it because the guy retired. He's like, and we're looking for an instructor. He's like, you should open it for us. And I was like, I like that idea. Yeah. I agree with you. So I went downstairs and the maintenance guy showed us the wood shop, which had closed a few months prior because the instructor retired and the director of the VA, that facility didn't feel like it was a good liability concern to reopen it.
Okay.
Extra money, they were paying him salary to be there. So they're like, listen, we can save some money. We reduce our liability, cut the insurance out. There you go. There's, $1 million you just saved the VA a year. So we got a petition going. I came home. We talked about it with some friends. We opened a petition on petition.org. This is in 2019, like July, August. And like within the first 2 weeks, we had like 3,000 signatures. And then like within like a month, 2 months, we had like 5,000, 10,000. 3 months goes by, we got 90,000 signatures.
Yeah. And like what at 30,000, they have to respond or something.
Right.
Like
yeah,
the rule that like before that, they basically can just say, nobody cares about your petition. But at a certain level, you get like a written response.
Correct. Well, we're still waiting technically.
Yeah.
So
well, it's the VA. You're always waiting. I mean, come on.
That's it. Take a number. Yeah. So we also did like, for me, like woodworking is, I've always liked turning wrenches. I feel like I like that creative feeling of like being able to make something, whether it's a small block engine or whatever. Furniture. And then, so I reached out to a bunch of other veteran woodworkers and I was like, hey, can you guys shoot me like a quick minute video, film yourself in the first person, talk to the camera, tell us why you guys enjoy what it is that you do, whether it's hobby or full-time, just tell the camera, tell everyone why it is that you enjoy what you do. So then we got like 30 different video clips from a bunch of veterans all over the country. And we put together this little video montage, attached the 90,000 signature petition to it and sent it off to the director. And like next week, COVID hit it was just like the perfect timing. It was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Everything's
Yeah.
full lockdown, no visitors allowed.
You're basically getting kicked in the nuts.
So the idea was that like, if that's going to be a no, then we should just open up a space out in town that can support that idea and also my business. So the kind of where I'm at right now in my crossroads, excuse me, is like, I'm kind of outgrowing my shop, even though I got a shed in the back now. I'm definitely outgrowing it. I need help. Like I'm desperate for a good craftsman to come help me, but it's hard to do that in my house because of the liability with, homeowners insurance, workman's comp. Like I can get in some trouble if somebody goes to get hurt. So I'm potentially looking at properties that can both house Veteran Woodco and also serve as like a maker space for those who want to come learn and or need the release, so to speak. Like if I can get the VA to bust these kids in, because it's only down the road. If I can get them to bust these kids in on like a Friday night and we just make a bunch of cool shit for a few hours and then take them home, like that would work for me.
Yeah.
So it's kind of serve like it'd be the Maker Community Project and Veteran Woodco under one roof. And it would serve as like almost like a seminar holding space for teaching.
It's great.
That's kind of the idea I'm trying to push the company in. It's tough. Property in this area is very expensive. Rent's very expensive. I'm just trying to figure out, like, we buying a building, or we rent a space? Like, are we going to have a landlord? Like, what direction do we go in here? Or do I just keep small and, just stay to myself?
Right. And kind of work through it. But I have a feeling you're not going to stay to yourself, because it doesn't sound that
I don't,
it's not going to work. Can't do that.
No. Then there's option 3. Option 3 is to be determined. It's 2 very good friends of mine who are very, very good at what they do. Very similar to what I do, but bigger, mostly metal, a lot of signage, and we're all the same age and we're all having the same problem. Is like, they need help. I need help. They're asking me for help. I'm always asking them for help. Hey, I have an idea. Like,
combine up
our powers combined.
Yeah. Well, for sure.
Yeah. Like that's another idea. Is like, hey, let's start looking at like getting property and making this like version 2.0.
Right. Do some type of a total umbrella kind of company that houses all your individual.
All 3 of us. Yep, yeah. All 3 of us. Cause right now, like we're always asking each other for help, and and they're 2 miles down the road. So I need help with an install. I need help with the lift. I need help with you move materials, like whatever it is. So, and then like I have CNC, you don't, but you weld, you got a plasma cutter, but he doesn't. He's got a laser, but I got a smaller laser. But it's just like, all together, we all have the best combination of tools. We just need one roof.
You need a space.
Yeah.
You need a space.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure it'll work out, man. I'm sure you figure this out.
I hope so.
You got a good plan.
It always works itself out.
It definitely does. I say that to my wife all the time. I'm like, it's going to work out. Don't worry.
We're not in control of it.
No.
We can plan, but it's not gonna work.
That's why I try not to get stressed. I'm sitting here and I go, hon, it'll be what it is. And we'll make the best of whatever gets dealt to us.
That's it. That's all you can do.
Yes, sir. Well, man, like I said, it's been awesome to talk to you. I can't wait to see all the stuff you do in the future, especially with the nonprofit and, expanding and all of that. So,
thanks, Jay.
It's very cool. Very cool stuff.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Nah, definitely. Thank you for coming on, and I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thanks, man. Likewise.
All righty.
Have a good day.
You too, sir.